let's start with what you know about McAvoy because you're the person that I've been reading the most about.
Mm.
So, what's your understanding of the McAvoy situation and when the Bruins got involved and how miffed they are at Team USA?
Well, let's start with Charlie's back home, but he's out for weeks. So is he out for the season? Probably not. But there's no rush to get him back, just in terms of where the team is without Lindholm, the situation. This guy has to be 100% healthy, right? He's one of your three most important players, and you got to get him right. But he's on the mend. Everything is good in that sense. And then let's go back in the terms of the timeline. He gets injured February 13th in US's game against Finland. We think it's from the cross check that he took from behind. He goes into the net. Okay, he hurts his shoulder. He's not feeling great after the game. And then that's where it gets a little fuzzy. What kind of treatment did he receive from Team USA staff then? What did he say? I'm sure, knowing Charlie and knowing 100% of these athletes, they all raise their hands and say, do whatever it takes to put me in that US Canada game. So, what was that? Who knows what the actual treatment was? And we don't know. Like, hey, we all remember that hit that he dropped McDavid with. There were a couple other ones. He dropped Sid. He has another one on McDavid. I'm sure that didn't help when you have a shoulder injury. So did it make it worse? I don't know. But after that, starts feeling worse. After that, and then comes back to Boston, and then that's where the diagnosis happens. That's where they say, "Whoa, this is getting a little bit out of hand in terms of the infection. That's the most dangerous thing." And then the team doctors for the Bruins take over. So yeah, there was dissatisfaction at the time. I'm sure that has waned given the time and the fact that Canada won when you're looking at it from Don Sweeney's perspective. But yeah, they were not satisfied, but they've turned the page. Don was quite clear about not reopening that issue when he spoke on Sunday. So um, yeah, it's let's rest up, Charlie, is the message from the Bruins.
Okay, so just one more thing about the tournament because it was such a huge success, but there's been debate on this show about this, not so much within the show, but with some outside people. Look, the Four Nations was a huge success, right? They've already said they're going to do a World Cup every other year and the Olympics every other year. But guys did get injured in this tournament. And so I'm going to ask you from your perspective, if I'm an owner of a team, and one of my players gets hurt playing in this tournament, is the upside, specifically the Four Nations, is the upside of that push of those couple games in the ratings of those couple games worth me losing a player that might cost me playoff gate in like a round of the playoffs?
Yes, that's just the reality, right? It's hockey. It's violent. It's rough. Guys get hurt all the time. Charlie's not the only one coming out of there with bumps and bruises. That's you got to deal with it. That's the reality. Of course, that's no owner would be happy. They send off their star player for a couple weeks and comes back and can't play, and who knows, out for the playoffs, cost millions of dollars. Coach gets fired, GM gets fired. Tough. That's the reality. You have to think of the bigger picture when you're looking at it from an owner's perspective, and these are millionaires and billionaires. I'm sure they're good at looking at big picture issues such as overall league revenue and television ratings and trying to attract new people into the sport and making it more of a global event. So yeah, that's reality.
Do you think they should have an event like this every year, or do you think they should stick to the every other year format?
I agree with you every other year. It's a big ask. Whatever appearance fee that these players got, it's chump change. It's not enough given how much they invested. So and it's not taking advantage of them, but like in one way it is in terms of okay, you want to represent your country and do this, play against the best. Well, here you are. Here's your money. Like who's going to say no to that in terms of oh, no, I'm not going to go until you pay me more. So there's that. And it's like we all saw how intense and violent and fast it is. That burns matches for every player. Especially like look at some of your older guys. How long does it take a older player to recover from that kind of ask versus your 22-year-old, probably a little bit longer. And but yeah, every 2 years, that's a good cycle.
Yeah, I think so too, and the players certainly want to do it. But you mentioned older players, Fluto. One of the older players who got to experience victory was Brad Marchand, and we were kind of thrown around back and forth a little bit yesterday. Does this would this in any way compel Marchand to consider playing elsewhere because he got to experience winning at a high level again? And while I don't believe he wants to be traded, most Bruins fans don't want him to be traded, and we don't think he will be. But is there anything in playing in a tournament like that and getting to play with other people and having that experience that might give Marchand or any other player the notion that, you know what, that wasn't so bad after all? To join up with a group of guys and actually have a chance to win something at the end of it, kind of forgot how good that feels. I wonder if Marchand's feeling any of that.
It's the same question I asked Brad yesterday at practice, and he did not equate it to the cup run of 2011 or any of the other cup runs. He said it's a totally different animal. It was 2 weeks, totally different thing. So he did not feel as if that was a kind of preview in terms of a potential cup run elsewhere. But I did ask him, does that give you any kind of temptation to say, if there is a team that has a legitimate, more competitive shot at the cup, would you raise your hand and say, I'd be interested in that opportunity? And his answer was he doesn't really see a slam dunk leader in the pack around the league in terms of being an overwhelming cup favorite. He still thinks like if these guys get in, like they have a shot. And I don't know if I agree with him, but that's what he believes. And he is so invested in that being a Bruin for life since 2006, being drafted and following Patrice out the door in terms of being from soup to nuts, a Bruin, and that is important to him. So how important will it be in terms of the contract negotiations that are taking place? We'll see. But at this point, there's still less than 2 weeks to go before the trade deadline. He does not feel, Brad, that okay, I want out in terms of chasing a cup because he doesn't see like he doesn't consider Winnipeg, for example. I think Winnipeg's been probably the best, if not one top two team. He doesn't see them as being okay. I got to go there to maximize my chance to win. He still likes it here.
Is it the right thing to do for the Bruins to trade Brad Marchand business wise?
It's a really tough call just because you still need the player, right? In terms of the production, still your second leading scorer. You don't have anybody being a number one or number two left wing next year. There's the presence. It's just a giant presence in the room. The only guy from 2011 are David and Charlie ready to take that next step for leadership? Probably not. So, but the question is, when does the decline happen? Is it next year? Maybe not. Is it in 2 years? Maybe. And if it's a 2 year deal, well, you're just going to have to deal with that issue then. And you have to think of the possible return. Let's say, okay, if you're the Bruins, okay, let's see what's out there. I don't know that the return is going to be that high. The return that somebody said, maybe a second round pick, maybe a young player. Like I don't know if Brad's going to get you back a first round pick at this point. So is that worth in terms of accelerating what you're trying to rebuild here versus the void? That's a very, very hard question. I think they're going to attack that for a long time before March 7th.
Could you conceivably trade Marchand and then sign him next year?
You could. Yep. Yep. Certainly. Thing is, we don't see that happen very often, right? Like, when's the last time that happened? It just is not a regular occurrence. Who knows how Brad would feel about that? He has some control, but it's only partial. It's a partial no trade protection that he has. So let's say, okay, they don't come to an agreement on a deal. They move him somewhere where he's like, I don't know, like, how does he feel about that? Like, is that enough of a bridge burn that he doesn't consider coming back? Who knows? So it just doesn't happen very often. Is the one wrinkle in that scenario?
Yeah, it's just interesting that isn't more of a possibility, right? Like, because I don't know how cutthroat it is, just because I put myself in both people's shoes. I put myself in the Bruins' shoes, and I'm like, all right, we could get something for him short term, like, for 3 months, he's gone.
Send Brad a chance to win one more cup because he's probably not going to win one in a Bruins uniform.
And, give him a chance to play, meaningful hockey but whatever. But I'm doing it selfishly too. And then from Brad Marchand's perspective, I know he loves being here. I know he's tight with the community. His family's here. You're just leaving for 3 months and then coming back. The idea of him playing even 3 months for another franchise, I guess that's something that I can't really relate to as being that big a deal, but it is to him.
From the player's perspective, it is. Right. Yes.
Okay.
He wants that A to Z continuity of being a Bruin for life. And to go back on the point, like, he doesn't see, like, maybe if there's, like, for example, Winnipeg, or let's look at the Bruins from a couple of years ago, clear-cut favorite. Maybe in that situation, he'd say, okay, get me to a team like that where my chances of winning the cup are significantly better than the rest of the running. Then maybe he would be interested. He doesn't see it that way right now.
Even like Toronto, that wouldn't be fun for him, like to play in like the Mecca and with all that attention, and he's from Halifax and all that.
Not considering the circumstances of wanting to be a lifelong Bruin.
All right, well, that's very interesting, Fluto, and it's great stuff as always. We love Fluto Shinzawa. Does an excellent job as the senior NHL writer covering the Bruins for The Athletic. Fluto, always appreciate it, man. A great job as always.
For more Bruins analysis and opinion, hit this playlist. And for all the latest from the Sports Hub, download the app at 985thesportshub.com.